Consider this. You are where you are today because of all the things that you didn't know, that you discovered, learned, interrogated, understood, and applied. Whether that's comprehending a new language, adopting certain process to solve problems, or analyzing derived data to infer information. You once did not know, underwent a course of progression and development to acquire and learn new knowledge. And here you are today watching this video, grasping what I'm saying because of comprehension competencies that knowledge has afforded you. Our excellence at the level, vocation, and influence of where we're already at lies solely on the mastery of what we already know. Our personal growth, career advancement, and ability to innovate new frontiers is therefore predicated on our ability to unlearn what we already know and immerse ourselves into the unknown to acquire new insights, fresh perspectives, and remold our minds to adapt to the new skill sets required to keep up with the newly discovered worlds we find ourselves in. Entrepreneurship is intrinsically, in its fundamental application, the process of venturing into the unknown to find solutions and answers to problems that the known cannot solve or that the unknown can solve even better. At the same time, entrepreneurship is extrinsically the language we use to communicate the solutions to these problems in a commercially viable way in exchange for economic returns. Entrepreneurship is a unique discipline to study in that it is inherently both a process and a language. In other words, it enables us to ask and answer the following question: what issue, need, or problem am I looking to address? Address being the process. And how does my addressing this issue, problem, or need translate into business? Translate being the language. Most of the time when people are being taught entrepreneurship, they're only being taught the language. You will learn about selling goods, providing a service to a market at a profit. You will learn about the meaning of profits and how to calculate costs to determine a margin. You will learn about revenue or turnover and how it is a function of price multiplied by the volume sold. You will learn about markets and how these are segmented and the choices you need to consider when targeting a niche or mass market segment, and the many other aspects that are important to knowing and understanding the language of entrepreneurship. But what is equally, if not more important than the language, is the process of conceptualizing value in the first place. How do you spot opportunities in the first place? How do you develop the mindset of seeing the full picture from scattered blocks? How do you develop the disposition of innovation? How do you develop a healthy appetite for risk and move into a space where you are able to deepen the knowledge of the process by actualizing the concepts of entrepreneurship in more practical senses? That is the fundamental reason for the series. The starting point is an understanding that entrepreneurs are creators of the new or creators of the better. To move into a space where you are creating or at least identifying opportunities to create, you need to first cultivate the mindset to create. In other words, you need to become or become more creative in your thinking. Creativity is a muscle. And like any muscle that you seek to be more defined, flexible, and stronger, you need to exercise to develop. With the right intensity and frequency, anyone has the ability to become or become more creative in their thinking. There are basically three aspects to creativity that, when you exercise frequently, lead to more creative thinking. The first is being contrarian. A contrarian is someone who opposes or rejects a popular opinion. In other words, being contrarian is about rejecting the status quo or refusing to accept the current reality as is or as the be-all and end-all. Before the Wright brothers could invent the first airplane, they had to reject the popular notion at the time that it was impossible for humans to fly. Think of the old folklore of the bumblebee that says, according to aviation physics, the wingspan of a bumblebee relative to its body mass is too small for it to fly. However, the bumblebee does not know aviation physics, and so it flies. Sometimes what we know is what's holding us back from flying. Creativity stems from abandoning what you know and immersing yourself into the unknown. This requires us to practice having the audacity to be contrarian. I think of our beloved South Africa, which is marred with a complex history of racial segregation where people of color were ostracized, brutally forced into mass incarcerations in the form of township, and subjected to constant fear, suffering, and living in inhumane conditions. Yet in the midst of this abomination that was apartheid, there emerged liberation struggle icons who refused to accept that the nightmare the black child was living in was the only reality that South Africa was ever going to experience. They rejected this reality and dared to believe in an unknown democratic landscape where, irrespective of color, creed, religion, or sexual orientation, all South Africans were equal. It is because of this disposition to reject the status quo and dare to believe for something better that today we are grateful to these liberation struggle icons who abolished apartheid and created something better. To develop the creativity required for an entrepreneurial mindset, you need to practice becoming contrarian by challenging the status quo and daring to believe for something new and better. The second thing that you need to exercise is to learn to be more curious. You do this by developing the habit of asking more questions and exploring other alternatives. Anyone that has ever had to look after a toddler can attest to the level of patience you need to have in answering all their questions. To be a parent, you basically need a PhD in everything, because kids are not just going to do what you tell them to do, they want to know where, when, how, and more importantly, why. Kids are always asking why and exploring other alternatives to learning. This is the reason why kids are so creative. Their creativity is fueled by their curiosity. Their ability to draw, to write, to sing, to paint, to make stuff out of Play-Doh comes from an innate desire to express knowledge that their curiosity has allowed them to discover. So if you want to be more creative, you need to learn to ask more questions, ask what if, and explore other alternatives. If you're used to taking one route to work, take another route and live life with your eyes wide open, ready to discover more. The last thing is imagination. Albert Einstein, who was a pretty smart guy and knew a lot of stuff, once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulates progress, giving birth to evolution." Again, you want to know why kids are so creative? It is because most of the time, they live in their imagination. You can give a kid a rock to play with and that kid will be entertained for hours. Not because that rock is necessarily something fun to play with, but because of everything that the kid imagines the rock to be. So start daydreaming more. Start allowing your imagination to help you visualize alternative worlds with superheroes and superpowers. For it is the process of imagination that gives birth to evolution. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that your mind is being stretched in new ways. I would love to hear some of your results on the contrarian, curious, and imaginative outlook that you've started to adopt. So please feel free to drop some of the creative ideas that you've conjured up, and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to keep up with this entrepreneurship lights, camera, and action, because you best believe it's gonna be a movie.